What is the actual interest rate on a mother's desperation when she is forced to choose between a warm bedroom for her child and a full plate on the dinner table? Perhaps the most haunting question in our modern economy is why those with the absolute least amount of money are the ones who are consistently charged the highest prices for the basic necessities of survival. It seems like a cruel joke, yet it is a documented economic reality known as the poverty premium. Why does our society function in a way that makes it more expensive to be poor than it is to be wealthy? Perhaps we can picture a man named Marcus, a composite sketch of a hardworking father living in a rural community where the nearest large grocery store is 30 miles away. Marcus has just received a small, unexpected bonus of $500 from his seasonal job. One might wonder if this small windfall will finally be the thing that allows him to catch his breath, or if a hidden psychological trap has already sealed his financial fate before the check was even cashed. Marcus is standing at a crossroads, and the mystery of his survival will depend not on his effort, but on the invisible tax that follows him every time he tries to buy a loaf of bread or pay a light bill. We will find out what happens to that $500 in a moment. Why is it that an identical loaf of bread or a gallon of heating fuel costs more depending on the size of your bank account? The simplest form of this diagnosis is that poverty is not just a lack of money. It is a lack of the resources required to access the discounts that the wealthy take for granted. People on low incomes frequently pay a premium for essential goods and services, which means they are paying more for the exact same products as households with higher incomes. Why does this happen? One reason is what economists call demand-side factors, such as the desperate need for budgeting control. For example, many families use prepayment meters for their electricity or gas. These meters allow a person to see exactly how much they are spending in real time, which helps them avoid a large, scary bill at the end of the month that they might not be able to pay. However, the cost of using these meters is often higher than the cost of paying by a monthly direct debit. Why are we charging people for the privilege of knowing they're about to run out of heat? Another layer of this human condition involves the inability to buy in bulk. When a person has only $10 in their pocket, they cannot buy the 30-pack of toilet paper that would save them 40% over the long run. They are forced to buy the single roll at the local convenience store for a much higher price per unit. This means the poor are often stuck in a cycle of small, frequent purchases that drain their wealth faster than if they were buying in large quantities. Is it possible that our markets are designed to reward those who already have a surplus, while punishing those who are merely trying to survive the day? Why does the human mind seem to function differently when resources are scarce? Science suggests that poverty imposes a massive cognitive load or a tax on the brain's bandwidth. When a person is constantly juggling which bill to pay and which debt to ignore, their mind is so preoccupied with the immediate present that they have less mental energy left for long-term planning. It is like a computer trying to run too many programs at once. Eventually, the system slows down. This is not a character flaw. It is a logical response to a high-stress environment. People in poverty often experience what researchers call a monetary cocktail party effect. Just as you might hear your own name across a crowded, noisy room, a person facing scarcity sees the price tag on everything, even when money is not the topic of conversation. A simple trip to a doctor's office becomes a double listening task. In one ear, they hear the diagnosis, while in the other, they are frantically calculating the cost of the medication and whether they can afford the bus fare to get to the pharmacy. Why have we built a world where a person's health is mediated by the constant, intrusive sound of a mental calculator? Perhaps we should ask why some people seem to give up while others keep striving. This brings us to the concept of the aspirations window. We generally form our goals based on what we see the people around us achieving. If the gap between where a person is and where they want to be is too small, they might not feel motivated to change. But if that gap is too large, if the mountain of wealth seems impossible to climb because they have never seen anyone from their neighborhood reach the top, they may fall into a state of fatalism. This is the belief that their destiny is preordained and that no amount of effort will matter. Is it fair to blame a person for not planning for the future when their current context systemically undermines their ability to look ahead? This is what philosophers call the undermining of prospective agency. To plan for next year, you must first be reasonably sure you will have a roof over your head next week. When housing is precarious and jobs are unstable, the rational choice is to focus entirely on the present moment. Why do we expect the poor to be paragons of long-term planning when we have removed the stable ground they would need to stand on to see the horizon? What is the fix for a problem that is so deeply embedded in our social and economic structures? Based on the research, the answer is not to simply teach the poor how to manage money they do not have. Instead, the most effective fix involves a two-part approach that addresses both the physical lack of money and the psychological barriers of the human mind. First, evidence suggests that psychologically smart institutional design can change lives. One example is a program called Save More Tomorrow, which asks people to commit to saving money not from their current paycheck, but from their future raises. This bypasses the pain of paying now and works with the human tendency to be more patient about the future than the present. Why not design all our systems to make the right choice the easiest automatic choice? Second, the data shows that the most direct way to break the poverty trap is through targeted transfers and fixing market failures. This means providing a basic safety net like universal health care or education subsidies that prevents a single illness or a single car breakdown from turning into a lifetime of debt. When people know they are protected against a total downward spiral, they are more willing to take the risks necessary to invest in their own futures. The fix is to stop treating poverty as an individual failing and start treating it as a structural malfunction that can be corrected with better engineering. Now, we must return to Marcus and his $500 bonus. Remember that check? Marcus was thrilled. He planned to use it to buy a used riding lawnmower so he could start a small side business for extra income. But then, reality intervened. Because Marcus lives in a high-poverty area with no mainstream banks, he had to go to a check-cashing storefront that took a large percentage of his bonus just to give him the cash. Then, his car, only way he can get to his main job, needed a new alternator. Because he has no credit history, he couldn't get a standard loan and had to take out a high-interest payday loan to cover the repair. By the time he paid the check cashing fee and the first installment of the high-interest loan, his $500 bonus was gone. He is now in more debt than he was before he received the extra money. Marcus didn't make a bad choice. He made a series of necessary choices in a market that is rigged to extract value from his poverty. Marcus is not just out of money. He is out of hope because he has realized that in his world, even a win is just another way to lose. The unsettling truth about the human condition is that our character is often just a reflection of our circumstances, and we have built an economy that functions like a mirror that only shows the poor their own struggle. We like to believe that wealth is a sign of virtue and poverty is a sign of laziness, but the data suggests a much darker reality. We charge the poor a misery tax because it is profitable to do so, and we justify it by pretending they chose to pay it. Money does not just buy things, it buys the mental freedom to forget that money exists, a luxury that the poor can never afford. Every statement in a bank ledger cuts deep to the soul because in the end, we are not just debating numbers. We are deciding who gets to have a future and who is required to stay trapped in a permanent, agonizing present. This is for philosophical and educational purposes only, not financial advice. The characters portrayed are composite sketches used to illustrate real-world financial data and psychological principles.